So let me give you a bit of context. When I was a kid, I watched as much anime as I could. So, not knowing any anime sites at the time, I used my local resources like YouTube and DVDs, and most importantly, cable TV. I found a ton of anime this way, and a bunch of Funimation stuff that I can't really remember, but I can vividly remember the "you should be watching." I felt so grown watching these shows when my parents weren't home. It's like Funimation was making these shows specifically for me to find. Not every show is a banger, most of them I couldn't see the preview of, so I basically chose off of what sounded interesting. But one of these mysterious anime that I ended up watching pretty much from start to finish was C, The Money of Soul and Possibility Control. Yes, the title is confusing, but stay with me here. I remember this anime being really cool, and I really wanted to go back and see if it was just as cool as I remember, and see why this anime is completely underrated. But before we keep going, how about you consider subscribing? It'll be completely free, no sketchy black card needed. That's a reference to the anime, you'll see what that is soon. But if you're really feeling charitable, check out the second channel where we do a ton of fun stuff over there too. Okay, I won't hold you up, so let's keep moving. C, which is what I'm going to be calling it from now on, was produced by Tatsunoko Production, which is the same studio that made Psycho Pass Season 2. It broadcasted from April to June of 2011. A pretty short run considering that this anime is 11 episodes long. I don't remember much about the anime, but I do remember that this show had a pretty abrupt ending. But I'm really curious to see how it turns out, because again, I don't remember. Episode 1 starts us off with this sweaty guy who seems to be down on his money. He pulls out his Cash App card and wants to make a deal. So he heads to what's called the Financial District. This is where people bet on battles using money, and everything centered around these battles has to deal with how much money you have and how much you're willing to spend. Once you hit 0, I'm pretty sure you just die. And a little side note, this is future me, you don't die, but apparently you go so broke that it makes you want to shoot yourself. In Minecraft. We meet Mikuni, who is challenged by the sweaty guy because he desperately needs the money. Mikuni talked about perception, and depending on where you are, you're gonna look at money much differently. This is immediately reflected through the first fight. Mr. Sweat sees this as an opportunity to change his life around, but to Mikuni, this is just keeping the status quo. And I think this moment right here just shows that, and it's really, really cool.
I didn't come here to gamble, I'm fighting you because I need the money! So do I. Direct.
Neither of them are above money, they just see it completely different. But what if I told you this was the first 6 minutes of the episode and we haven't even seen our main character yet? Kimimaro Yoga is a college student who has 2 part-time jobs. And this was me once, y'all. It was not fun in the slightest. When I was younger, I remember thinking to myself, why is this guy so broke? But I fully understand where he's coming from, down to the T. So there is this very funny clip of the main character, one of the girls in his class brings him the notes, and he's like, oh, you wanna go out for dinner? And she's like, oh, I have a boyfriend. And he just hits the craziest face. I'm just gonna play the clip.
My shift's almost over. What do you say I take you to dinner to say thank you?
My boyfriend's waiting for me.
Oh.
You'd better ace that test.
I'll try.
When he gets home, he's greeted by a representative from the Bank of Midas. His name is Masakaki, and I really like his design. He's the only character that kind of flip-flops between being 2D and 3D. It kind of fits into his theme where he's just some sort of otherworldly being and can change his body as he sees fit. I think it also kind of fits because he isn't like a human, so his attire and his 3D model just kind of fit into the show seamlessly. He tells Kimimaro that he can become what's called an entree and sign away his future in order to gain access to more money. The next morning, he wakes up with 500,000 yen in his bank account, which is roughly $3,000. So when he goes to spend it, he's met by Masakaki and he gives him his very own Cash App card where he then takes him to the Financial District. Episode 1 was actually really good and I enjoyed how real it started off. I don't think we're getting some mindless action anime. I think we're going to get a bit more into the philosophy and ideas behind finance. And if you're watching this, I think your brain's about to get 3 times bigger. So subscribe and it will become 4 times bigger because being subscribed to me makes you automatically smarter, okay? Episode 2 picks up right where we left off. Kimimaro gets his asset Mashu, which is basically his Digimon. He has to learn quickly about what a deal is, but I'm gonna explain this to you so you guys are all filled in. So when you enter a deal, you're able to finance attacks. When you get hit with an attack, you lose money, and when you land one, you gain money. The goal is to deplete your opponent's money. This was actually pretty simple and intuitive. Kimimaro was able to win his first deal with an ass pull and get his earnings from the fight. Earlier I said that Masakagi was the only one who had a 3D model, but we promptly see Mashu in her 3D model, and this was definitely, something. Kimimaro meets Mikuni and he tells him that all the black money he's been seeing is safe, but that he shouldn't just settle for normal goals. I've always had the impression that these two characters are supposed to be opposites, but connected in a way. Like two sides of the same coin. Or like Naruto and Sasuke, where they have the same ideals, but see them completely differently. I'm not sure if that will be the case yet, but I feel like their relationship is heading in that sort of direction. Episode 3 is where the anime kinda starts asking and answering its own questions. We meet Sato, who's assigned to figure out what the financial district actually is. We don't get that, but she does explain to us that there are financial districts across the world. She can only really find out more about the place if she talks to people who've been there. Mikuni is one of Sato's main suspicions, mainly because he spends so much time in the financial district, but in the real world, he just has a ton of jobs where he's at the top of the company. Mikuni seems to know more than he lets on about the Midas money, and her goal is to figure that out. Going back to Kimimaro, he visits his aunt and she shows him his dad's old stuff. He finds a notebook with a bunch of numbers and eventually the symbol found on the Midas bills. Kimimaro is freaked out, so he heads to the financial district to see if he can get some answers. Right now my theory brain is going off and I think that his dad was invited to gamble, lost the deal, and offed himself. Which is actually the way he died. Damn! Motherfucking dad! Mikuni and Kimimaro talk about their families and how much they resent their fathers, but inevitably can't avoid being just like them. Episode 3 ends with Kimimaro in a deal with his professor of all people. I honestly think this was a pretty cool twist. It shows that truly anyone can be invited to the financial district looking for a way to improve their life. In this case, the professor is shown to have a family with 3 kids. The show cuts in between the fight between the professor and his wife. It feels so frantic, but I imagine this is what it feels like running into someone you know or know somewhat personally. To the professor, this money is just another means to provide for his family. He doesn't need to second guess fighting Kimimaro. The professor ends up losing the deal, but Kimimaro wins with the help of Mikuni. So Kimimaro goes to class the next day and he sees his professor safe and sound. He invites him to his house where he explains that he gambled away his future and Kimimaro needs to take advantage of anything he can get from now on. Just as this happens, his wife is now unpregnant. They took his kids away from him. Now Kimimaro is faced with a decision. Keep winning deals and benefit from them, which is inevitably hurting someone else, or lose a deal and lose for himself. Well, he decides that from watching Mikuni's deal that he'll keep winning while not affecting the other person on the other end. How does that work, you might ask? Because so far the system seems pretty binary. If you lose, you go bankrupt, and if you win, you keep dealing. Well, there's this guild that comes in. They win deals by very low margins, so it doesn't completely affect their opponent. This is shown through Kimimaro losing his first deal. He gets back home to find out that his aunt's in the hospital, he failed the test, and his crush is moving. Like, damn, triple homicide! So after this, Sato captures Kimimaro and talks to him about the financial district. She tells him in order for everyone to benefit, the whole thing just needs to be shut down. Right now, Kimimaro is under the impression that what the guild is doing, minimizing the effects of losing a deal, is what the goal is. But Sato is saying that the system is so unpredictable, no one should be using it at all. Kimimaro goes to talk to his opponent for his next deal, and he's like a philanthropist. He tells him that when he lost the deal, not only did his life change, but the lives of some impoverished kids changed too. So now Kimimaro is at a crossroad. Take the deal and hurt the kids in Africa, or forfeit the deal and deal with the repercussions himself. He says fuck them kids and wins the deal. Things are going fine until Kimimaro notices that things are getting weird. There's not a lot of people in his class. His friend tells him to fuck off, and his teacher tries to find his family again. As we know, the financial district has a direct impact on what happens in the real world. But what happens if the financial district is doing bad? Well, apparently the whole nation will just not exist anymore. And right now, Kimimaro and Sato are experiencing that. Kimimaro doesn't want to gamble with this future anymore. He sees what happens to others, and he's even forced others to change their future, but ultimately, it's just not meant to be gambled with. So in essence, dealing is bad. But Mikuni wants to preserve the present to even consider having a future, therefore making dealing a necessary evil. Both of them want to preserve mankind, but in two different ways. This is a very interesting dichotomy. So there's this giant wave of financial crisis going through different nations, but it goes over Japan because of Mikuni. He takes out a loan that takes off 20 years of his future. This loan was able to protect the banks in Japan, minimizing the effect of the unemployment wave. In the penultimate episode, the financial crisis was shifted to America and then back to Japan. So Mikuni is going to make another loan. But if he makes that loan, he's going to pump more Midas money into the economy, and when that happens, more shit is going to disappear. So the current plan is to challenge Mikuni to a deal and finish him off for good. Sato challenges him first, and she ends up getting cooked bad. So I'm pretty sure when she passes, she gives her asset to Kimimaro, and that gives him the card he needs to reverse the loan process. Mikuni isn't just going to let him do this, so this is the final battle. The final showdown between Kimimaro and Mikuni was pretty cool. It was pretty extravagant compared to all the other fights we saw, which I wouldn't expect any less from the end of the series. Kimimaro ends up winning the deal, but Japan's money was so worthless that the financial crisis just ended up passing them anyway. They were so broke that not even broke wanted to touch them. But Kimimaro ends up destroying the financial district and meets the creator. He says that no matter what happened between the two, it wouldn't even matter because both options were correct. Saving the future and preserving the present was just a means to congregate the human race. Kimimaro was sent to a future where everything is fine. He doesn't have to deal anymore and everything's safe. He's visited by Masakage, who tells him that the financial district is something that will always be around if there's a future to be had. And like that, the series is done. I really enjoyed this series. It was short and sweet, but everything just kind of flowed so well. There was never a point where I wasn't paying attention. Everything felt so important. I think that Kimimaro was a really cool main character because he just wasn't anyone special. He was just a regular dude, but his mindset is what made him different. He didn't want to be responsible for hurting other people. He just initiated change, and anyone in the show could have done that. Two things I really liked though was the opening and the ending. The opening is by Nico Touches the Walls, and it's so nostalgic to hear. The ending is probably the better song, and it's by School Food Punishment. I think the ending just kind of fits, you know? Like, you have to watch the first 3 episodes to really get what I mean. The part where it flashes Open Deal and Kimimaro and Mashu are like neon, this is where I started watching openings and endings all the way through. These songs are so catchy. This was a really underrated anime that I'm glad I was able to rewatch. I hope that you guys check this one out because it seriously is amazing. I feel like I wasn't ready to watch it when I was younger. Yeah, there were cool action scenes, but I feel like this anime was made for me to enjoy 12 years later. So how is this anime so underrated? This show doesn't have a manga, so if you find any trace of a manga for this anime, I'll bless your Cash App.